Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife overview and presentation to share with you guys. This is the Herman Knives Big Sting, and there's actually I didn't even know that they made a big one until somebody had mentioned it, and then they had reached out and we talked about it. But yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a much larger version of their Sting model. It looks a lot like the Dragonfly, and we're going to compare with it. But this is a special one because not only is it a big Sting, and you know, it's got black Timascus scales, zirconium Timascus scales, and of course Damacore, N11X Damacore, or Van X Core Damacore. It's also been hand hammered by Bartosz himself. That's pretty cool. This is apparently the first time he has ever done this. Now this adds a lot to the price tag. This is pretty meticulous, and obviously it's going to take a while. But yeah, this is an expensive knife. The Big Sting itself is still an expensive knife, but it's far less expensive than the one that you're seeing here. So we'll go over the base price, or at least as far as I can tell. It's a little hard, a little tricky to find the base price of Herman knives, but I'll tell you guys what I know. And we'll talk about this one, and I'll give you guys my impressions of the Big Sting. This is a truly incredible piece. It is now one of the most expensive knives that I own. Very cool. I couldn't resist this one. I mean, you guys know that I am a Herman collector. I don't just show these things, I collect them. I keep them in my own personal collection. I go out of my way to acquire this stuff, and I'm a gigantic fan. They are some of my favorite, like, ultra mega high-end exotic knives, just with all the different colors and materials. It's one of my favorite aesthetics out there, and it's the reason that I own so many. So I'm happy to add this one in and talk about it today. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and make sure your notifications are turned on for the Metal Complex YouTube channel. So real quick, let's get an overall measurement of this guy. It's big, and they have some other big knives in their lineup. The overall length here is coming in at just shy. I think if we, it's right there. It's like 8.9 inches overall, just shy of 9 inches. Blade length is 3.85. Your cutting edge is also almost exact. It's like 3.75 on the cutting edge. Let's do some size comparisons. The two most important immediately. This is I have plenty of experience with user Hermans. I have this Sting. I had a large, I had a plain Dragonfly that I had as a user for a while, and a couple of others. There was also a DLC one. These knives ended up being traded off to other people that were, you know, just kind of chatting with me on Instagram. But I kept this Sting because it is my favorite EDC-sized Herman, and it is one that I truly enjoy EDCing. And truthfully, Herman knives, outside of, you know, some of the little tiny ones, a lot of Herman knives carry kind of the same, right? There's anywhere from like this size up to some longer ones like the Slim, but they're all very similar in terms of like how they operate and how they look and feel. It's just like the overall size and weight is really a lot. I mean, like obviously there's blade shapes and things, but Himmler. I started to say Herman knives and the word similar at the same time. They kind of all exist within a very similar aesthetic parameter, and there is some personality in, you know, extremes in those parameters. But if you look at Herman knives overall, I mean, they all have a very specific look. So here's the Big Sting up against the standard Sting, and yes, there is an even smaller one, the Micro Sting. I owned one for a little bit. It's too small for me, but this size is just about perfect, right? If you've handled this one and you think it's too small, the big one. This up against the Dragonfly. I have a very similar Dragonfly, if you want to see the differences here. The differences mainly are in the handle. There's a subtle difference in the blade. I'll move this out here because this is really mostly the people clicking on this are going to be people like Herman fans, right? So this blade drops pretty much consistently. There is a little bit right here. It starts to drop right down into that drop point. The Dragonfly has a subtle, I don't know if we want to, looking here, it looks like a subtle clip point, right? But the blades are largely the same size. The Dragonfly's blade is still a little bit longer. I think the Dragonfly overall is 9 inches. So I think it actually is slightly bigger than the Big Sting. We're going to get as close as we can here. God, they are really so close. I think maybe if they are almost identical in overall length, the Dragonfly has slightly less handle, slightly more blade, and the Big Sting has slightly more handle, slightly less blade. It's trivial though. Obviously, the other difference here is in how the handle is shaped. This, has pretty similar, like the primary index finger position is pretty much the same. And this area here just sort of swoops over and rounds off, whereas this one is pretty consistent, subtle curvature out, and then an abrupt end. Ergonomically, between the two, they're both just wonderful. If you've never handled a Herman knife, I'm dual wielding some absolutely insanely exotic stuff from Herman right now. But if you've never handled a Herman knife, their ergonomic lines are just absolutely incredible. And, these versions are super dressy, safe, cleany, like, oh my gosh, who would ever care? Sure, but Herman knives, these can obviously be used. Everybody knows that, right? And if you don't know that, just because this is shiny and ultra expensive doesn't mean that it's delicate. No, it's far from that. It's very much not delicate. I love the cutting geometry of my standard slim, right? If you're going to, buy a Herman knife, the EDC, then obviously you want something that's nowhere near as dressy, usually. Some people like to carry their dressy knives. But you also like the compact nature of this. It's nice and thin behind the edge. But yeah, ergonomic lines are great. All of that is still very much present. Because this guy is bigger and there's just, there's more material here and more room for my hand. This is a hand melting experience. Like your hand sort of melting and conforming around this. That's what it feels like. It's really, really good. But we're kind of getting off. We're getting off what we usually do here. Let's do some other size comparisons with some more standard, more regular stuff. Up against my own Excalibur, and let's do the compact Excalibur. So you can see here, Excalibur's not a little knife. It's not an absolutely massive knife, but it's not a little knife. It's definitely a lot bigger than my Excalibur. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Obviously a lot bigger there. And then finally, we'll put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. Where are you? I don't know where the deck is today. How about the Vision FG? We've got a surprise. Where the heck did the Deca go? I have no idea. Okay, how's the action? If you've ever handled a Herman knife, you know exactly what to expect. The detent is slightly different with every model. As somebody who owns multiple Slims, multiple Mantises, I've owned multiple Ishtars, multiple Dragonflies, I can tell you confidently that the detent is subtly different between each model. However, you have certain detent ranges that you can expect with each individual model. For example, in my experience, all of the Stings, like the standard ones, are all going to be a little lighter than some of the bigger knives, like the Dragonfly and the Slim. These just naturally seem to have heavier detents. But they do offer a detent tuning service. You have to send it back to them. But as far as I know, they will actually tune the detent of your knife if you're not satisfied with it. I've never experienced a Herman that didn't have smooth action. They tend to be more or less drop shut out of the box. This one's getting there. It's literally just maybe been flipped, 150 times. But even since I got it, it has gotten smoother. And then I have my all Damasteel Ishtar that was absolutely like light speed drop shut out of the box. This is going to depend on a few different factors. Obviously the surface finish and, how much of the race has been formed by the detent ball, right? Things like lock bar tension. And then all of this is going to be altered, depending on the size of the knife. Like each individual model is going to be a little different. So there's a range of things that can occur there, but I've never actually experienced a Herman knife where allergies. I've never experienced one where the pivot action felt bad. It just felt like, it's gonna get smoother, and they all did. Every single one of my own personal Herman knives, every Herman knife I've ever reviewed, they all got smoother over time. There was one where the detent was simply too light, and I think I actually talked about it in the review. I think it actually was the Micro Sting. It had not a non-existent detent, but it was very light, and I was like, I think the bare minimum should be a little better. This is phenomenal. This has a detent on the heavier side. We also have beautiful access to that lock bar. And something that you guys might have noticed here. Sorry, I zoomed in way further so that you guys could see, but it is a titanium lock bar. At first I thought, oh my God, is it a Timascus lock bar? No. And I think I understand why that wouldn't work. You have a couple different, you know, like if they did the lock bar material out of like the same black Timascus, I think you would have issues with the lockup. This is an anodized titanium lock bar, which is really cool. And I did not notice that when I unboxed it. I'm sorry about that audio changing there. I didn't notice that when I unboxed it. That's neat. Does it affect functionality in any way? Not as far as I can tell. But it matches the surrounding Timascus, right? This is not a, it's not a frame lock, it's a liner lock, but all the liner locks, like you can see here, this is just like a plain titanium liner lock, and it's fine. But now that I've seen this, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. It matches, everything matches. And it should work just like a regular, carbonized titanium lock face. This is the first time I've ever seen Herman do this, and it's the first time I've ever seen anyone do it. I've never seen anyone anodize a nested liner lock to match the surrounding aesthetic. That's a little tiny detail. It's one of those things like, oh yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, you know? So I'm pretty sure that they cannot make the lock bar out of zirconium Timascus because of the varying levels of hardness, and I don't know how that would interact with a lock face. I don't know what type of potentially uneven wear that would create. I don't know. Maybe it's possible and it's just really expensive to do. The fact that they went ahead and anodized this, right? Probably anodized it and then carbonized. That's what I don't know. Maybe they carbonized it and anodized. I don't know. That's neat. That's a neat little detail. But access to that lock bar is very, very good. And the detent is on the heavier side. Very nice. It sings like all of my other. You can see just a little bit of encouragement there. And it does have, well, I cut off the ring there, but and I really deadened it that time. See if I can get it. There we go. A little bit of a sing there. They're all a little bit different, but beautiful. More of a light switch. This is like almost entirely a light switch knife just because of how pointy it is, but light switching it, absolutely perfect. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. And again, I know you're doing carry profile on a knife that you don't plan to carry or who would carry. Number one, again, have EDC'd multiple Hermans, including the Dragonfly. And on top of that, the base version of this knife, it would be the exact same thing, just without all of the fancy Damacore and Timascus. So yes, we do carry profile. Slightly thicker, but also contoured. And it really doesn't feel thick at all. It feels... The contouring and the added thickness, you know, the fact that it's thicker and contoured, it is the most luxurious feeling. It's crazy. It does not feel blocky or clunky or anything like that. I don't think I stress that enough in Herman knife reviews, so I will today. It's not enormous. It's a big knife, but it's not necessarily taking up a ton more room in your pocket versus something like the PM2. Where you'll notice it versus the PM2 is the weight, because this is full tie. I would love for Herman to experiment with maybe micarta and S35VN or something like that. I think that Herman desperately needs to make not a budget tier, because Herman's not a budget brand and they can't make budget knives. Everything that their processes are expensive, right? So much like Shirogorov has their standard, production stuff. It's really expensive. They have their custom stuff, but they have their like standard production stuff, and then they have the Ursus line, which drops down into the $600 to $700 range. That's great. That's great. Not great for everybody. It's still incredibly expensive, but for people who look at $1,000 price tag and go, no. And then they look at maybe a $600 to $700 price tag and go, well, maybe. That's what I think Herman needs and is missing. I think that they could appeal to a lot more people by using some materials that don't cost quite as much, but still, really, really nice and still all of that Herman quality. It would also lighten up the weight on a lot of these knives and make for better balance. But mixing in things like a G10, micarta, carbon fiber, and just doing some creative stuff with it to still give it that upper tier feel. And then maybe using more LMAX. I know they don't use nearly as much LMAX anymore, but maybe mixing LMAX and S35V in or S45 in there a little bit. I think that would appeal to a lot of people. It would be nice because pretty much everything they make on their base, their entry level stuff is titanium and M390, which still ends up being pretty expensive. So, anyways, your weight here. Do we have the scale? Here it is. We are looking at not regular Timascus, we are looking at black Timascus, meaning those little gray areas are zirconium, and that makes this a little bit heavier. Then we have the D11X Damacore, which of course is a jacket of PMC27 and RWL34, aka Damasteel, and a core of D11X, aka Van X. That's what it is. Hardened to 61. Hardened to 61. That's just about the cap there for Van X. I think it may be able to be pushed to 62, but I think 60 to 61 is typically where people are hitting it at the cap. So very performance-oriented steel. It's not just pretty. It is extremely performance-oriented. 5.9 ounces, about 6 ounces. No surprise there. Titanium all the way through. Liners tie. The scales are sky. Tie. In this case, the backspacer is Damacore also. Not typically the case. Typically, the backspacer is titanium. In this case, it's a titanium Damascus backspacer, but just depends. With these really wild and crazy exotic ones, he does a lot of different stuff. I'll measure the blade stock thickness. I doubt that it's any different than the Dragonfly. I feel like it's about the same. So I'm gonna guess this is 135, maybe 140. It's 132. So at the edge, though, nice and thin. This one's hammered, so you have, I mean, if you were to actually use a hammered Damacore blade, I'm not gonna. If you were to, it will absolutely increase drag a little bit. You can feel it, right? This is an aesthetic finish. Now, it's not like it's, oh my God, I can't cut anything. It's just gonna have more drag than a fully flat ground polished surface like this. It's just what's gonna be the case. So, we'll do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel. It comes with its own pivot, though. Pivot tool. I think, yeah. So the pivots on these, I love them. It's a T20. And then your handle screws, these go all the way through, and they're like, you know, domed off at the top. It's really nice. These are T6. I wish that they would switch to T8, but they have not done that yet. So, okay. As long as you have the right tools for the job, and if you really want to take it apart, you can. Moving on into the meat and potatoes. What an absolutely gorgeous piece. And, you know, like, people looking at these Herman knives, I can understand why it seems like a lot they run together. But as somebody who owns, I mean, I own 10, just the exotic ones that I own. I think I own 10 of them. The amount of detail, like, yeah, you are largely looking at similar profiles. The amount of detail and the little tiny things that are different between each knife. Like, let's take a look at this pivot here. The pivot was also, it looks like it was hammered or finished at least to match the blade. You look at my Dragonfly here, and this is a polished pivot. Little tiny things like that, or the fact that they also hammered the backspacer. These are details that I love. These are details that got me to be the way that I am with pocket knives. As much as I love a consistent high polish or mirror finish, especially on, you know, Damasteel, I gotta say, this hammering that they've done here and the fact that, like, we've got a lot going on with this blade. Number one, it's triple composition. This is a San Mai blade. It's the real deal. Actually, Woots is the real deal. All right. Somebody throw a brick at the hoopla guy. As far as modern performance-oriented Damascus, right? The stuff that actually performs well. We're not talking about historic Woots that was like probably really magical and mystical in its time period, but would perform very average, if not poorly, by today's standards. As far as how it was made, their processes, we have all but figured it out completely. It's just not that special anymore. We don't know the exact processes. Now we can proceed. As far as I'm not going to say pattern welded Damascus every single time. I'm not going to. I'm just going to say Damascus. I'm just letting everybody know that I'm aware of. I'm letting that one guy know that I'm aware of woots. But anyways, this is about as exotic as it gets, you know, for, I mean, there's obviously more magnitudes above this in terms of like finish work and things that you can do with Timascus, but it's pretty exotic stuff. The N11X Damacore. Now, this stuff is like extremely stainless. It's like Vanax, the core, right? So it's a lot, from what I understand, it's a lot harder to get a super high polish on the core of N11X Damacore. They have two different versions of it. They have an RWL34 core, and if you're thinking, what? Yeah, I also double took at that. It is literally RWL34 and PMC27 as the jacket, and then another core of RWL34. And the reason they do that is so that custom knife makers can polish everything. My Francois Dutoy TF4 is an RWL34 core Damacore, and he had tried to do like this contrasting finish, and it didn't work. The RWL34 really wanted to polish. He said, should we just polish the whole thing? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And so that version of Damacore makes it a little easier if that's the goal of the knife maker. In this case, if you want contrast, if you want one that, you know, one of the areas to end up being really, really polished, right? You can see the layers in there that are not as polished. That would be the RWL. I think that's might actually be the PMC27 layers that are coming out like that. But the RWL34, I'm having trouble saying RWL34 and N11X today. They really polish up. So the contrast here with these shiny parts and then, you know, the darker parts mixed in, and then this exposed core coming through also as dark and cloudy. It's just really nasty looking. It's very like fantasy medieval weapon looking, and it's so cool. This knife really appears like an artifact. This is special. I think I love the hammered look. It looks, I mean, that line between like deadly weapon and jewelry, like it is just meeting perfectly, 50 right at the apex here. Very, very cool. Like I said, the texturing on the blade is very obvious. You can feel it, the hammering. It's on the spine as well. So cutting things, you'll still be able to slice and stuff. But if you, let's say you were to cut cardboard for a half an hour with this knife and with this knife, you'd feel it. You'd feel this, you know, resisting, you know, I think it'd be very obvious, these two blades versus each other. But you do still have a fully flat ground drop point. I mean, it's a folding kitchen knife, folding steak knife kind of look, right? Very cool. There are no fit and finish issues anywhere. Everything is beautiful and consistent. The cutting edge is just incredible. I'll let you guys take a look at that plunge grind there. Very nice. Where is the stop pin? I actually don't know. Oh yeah, they've got a little slot. This is the right way to do this, by the way. It's right behind the flipper tab. So, right there. The other nice thing about this polish that I'm finding is the way that they've, like this hammering that they've done, these shiny areas, even when I touch it and pinch it and wipe my fingers on it, it's still shiny. Like this does not pick up fingerprints. This, if I touch this, it's going to be very obviously like smoky, right? And you can I guess you can kind of see. But a blade like this, I think largely will just continue to look like this, right? Really, really cool. I've spent a good part of the last few days getting this out and just looking at it and enjoying it, which I find that I do less. I used to do it with like every single knife that I ever put my hands on. Study it, you know, every last little inch of it. And anymore with so many, especially with the cheap stuff all kind of running together, I don't do that as often. With stuff like this, I still do. But with knives specifically like this one, I really spend extra time going over each little tiny detail. It really is cool. I love that these little peaks sort of like start to peter out. You can actually see where that one was underneath. Like they probably could have, you know, brought that out if they wanted to, but you can, that little droplet there, almost like not connected. So cool. So cool. Absolutely wonderful. I like that the spine layers, you can see some shine in those as well. They didn't do the same exact thing with the back spacer. Mostly smoky, but it still looks cool. Pocket clip, same place as usual. It looks to be identical, and not identical. It is a little bit different than say this Dragonfly, but still, you know, pretty much the same length. 2 screws holding it in. Right hand only. Really nice. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. No double clutch. No pivot lash. Smooth and consistent in here. I can feel it's just going to keep getting smoother. Click into the closed position. And an absolutely dead-centered blade, as it should be. No detent lash. Absolutely gorgeous. So what the heck is the base price of this stuff? So when they used to use LMAX. So like this isn't even a base version of the Sting. It's M398. By the way, they have improved their HRC across the board. At least they list it as improved. I've never used a Herman that felt like the edge was fatiguing really quickly. So I have to assume that even when their heat treatment was lower, I think, like their M398, they used to only hit it at like 61. Now I think they hit it at like 63. Excuse me. But anyways, their base pricing for this stuff, it was a lot easier to pinpoint when they were using LMAX. I remember seeing certain Herman knives, some of the smaller, like the Stings and LMAX. I remember that, and I don't think you can get them this low anymore, but the lowest I ever remember seeing one was in the high 600s. Now, I think that some of the models, like if you were to get a plain M390 Sting, I think you might be able to find it for around $750. I don't know. I can find a big Sting online listed for $885. Now, it's anodized and in Magna, which tells me that the price can come down a bit. I would venture to guess if you found one if they ever made a batch with just plain M390 and non-anodized, it would probably come in at $800. Perhaps it does come in at $750. I've just never, there's no listing that exists. I mean, I can find archived listings on Polish Custom Knives, which by the way is where I'm going to link this. I can find archived listings of, sold big Stings, but the least expensive one that I found was $885. So I'm going to assume the base price of these is right around $800. Can you, order from Polish Custom Knives and trust that it'll get to you? Absolutely 100%. Every single thing that they have ever sent me has always made it. It also comes really fast. This isn't something that you order and it comes like a month later. They ship insanely fast. So, don't be alarmed. You go to the site and you're like, oh my God, it's all in German. They've got an option to switch it to English right at the top. And you're good to go. Find the one you want and go for it. Don't be alarmed by their website. They are amazing. They are constantly rotating new things in. So if what you're looking for isn't there, you want to check back in a couple of weeks. But I like the Big Sting. It's not different enough from the Dragonfly that like when it comes down to it, if you're shopping the Big Sting, you're probably also shopping the Dragonfly because they're incredibly similar, right? I used to just say straight up that the Sting was just the little brother of the Dragonfly. It's not. I mean, it's just these two are so close, right? So I'd say it's more so it's not even the blade profile. The blade profiles are super close. It's the handle profile. Which handle profile do you prefer? As far as whether or not I recommend this knife, I don't recommend it to everybody. And what I do recommend to the few people who I think that these knives are for, I recommend the base version, right? The exotic version, this is a $4,000 knife, this one here. You only buy stuff like this if you're like a super crazy serious collector, like if this is the type of stuff specifically that floats your boat, which it does me, right? But you have to remember, these stuff like this tax write-off. I also make ad revenue off of these videos, right? So this isn't the type of thing that I recommend to my average viewer. The base version of this, to those of you who have climbed the ladder and you're maybe past the $500-600 territory and maybe you're starting to look at Shurogorovs, right? Well, yeah, then absolutely. Like if you're in that $700, $800, $900 territory and you're looking at these, Herman knives, are these knives I'd recommend? Yes, definitely. There's such a wide range, though, of like what you can get for the money. So some of the more basic ones seem to be like the best value, obviously. I mean, because the price seems to go up exponentially with each little fancy thing that they do to it, right? So you can very quickly jump into the thousands just for a few little things. If you're wanting full Timascus and Damacore, yeah, you're going to pay $3,000 plus. That's what you're going to pay, right? And these are expensive materials. It's expensive to work with. They are not making these like how a Chinese company would do it. No, these are much more hand involved. The labor costs in Poland are substantially higher. So no, you can't get stuff like this, for, you're not going to get it from anybody for a few $100, right? There's always people out there who believe that that's the case. It is not the case. But there is a fair bit of markup in it for sure. So I feel like the ones I'm going to recommend, it's like I've always said, the ones that are the most recommendable are the base price ones. They're really, really nice, and they are still pocket jewelry. And they are made, it's very obvious. The first time you handle a Herman knife, you can tell that it's made in a superior way. But they're also good tools, right? So whether you plan to collect or actually take it out and use it, or both, the base versions are probably the one that are most recommendable. And I think, honestly, right around $800, I think that's pretty fair for what this is. So very cool. That's going to be it. Like I said, just more of an overview, even though it kind of still is about the same as the review. I just wanted to, this obviously was not a knife that went in my pocket. So I want to make sure and differentiate there. But I'll link Herman knives down in the description, and you guys can check this stuff out if you want to. That's going to be it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram. It would help if it was right side up at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on the Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.